When Daft Punk broke up in 2021, I was not too moved by it, to be perfectly honest. I knew a lot of other people were, but I just didn't have that kind of connection to them, both as artists or their art itself. I had heard a couple of their songs throughout my life, like Around the World and Get Lucky and Harder, Better, Faster, Stronger, and I had seen Tron Legacy and knew they did the soundtrack to that movie, but outside of that, I hadn't really listened to anything else they had made. If anything, I tried to listen to Discovery back in 2017, I want to say, but couldn't get a feel for it as a dance album. I got as far as Aerodynamic and didn't know how to groove to it and was too overwhelmed by it. But that was a couple years ago, and now I was in a different state of mind. Now, thinking about how Daft Punk were no longer together, I compulsively became interested in going back through their discography. At some point, YouTube started recommending videos about how Daft Punk would use samples, samples being clips of other people's music that are used in someone else's song. While compulsively scrolling to the comments section of these videos, I started seeing people praising the song Face to Face. I thought, well, if it's really good, then I want to experience it for myself. So eventually, I went outside, I found Face to Face on Spotify, and pressed play. Listening to Face was one of the weirdest and most interesting experiences I may have ever had. It was not what I was expecting at all. These sounds and these unintelligible vocal snippets fly by you within milliseconds. You know that scene in Doctor Strange 2 when Strange and America Chavez are flying through different universes back to back? That's kind of like how I would describe listening to Face. And then these super smooth vocals come in, and that was even more unexpected.
What's going on? Could this be my understanding? It's not your fault, I was being too demanding. I must admit, it's my pride that made me distant. All because I hope that you'd be someone different.
And then eventually, you start to hear this flute, and it's so good too, because there's enough space in the mix for you to be like, oh, there's a flute here? And it complements everything else going on in the track so well. I had never heard anything like this song before. I played it at least 5 times back to back that day. I fell in love with this song. Sometime after this experience, I found YouTuber Undertune's video on Face to Face. It was here where I learned about not just the different songs that were used, but also how they were used. And I just watched in awe at what I was seeing. The creativity and the cleverness of how this song was made was the most amazing thing to me at the time. The video ends with what samples are still needed to be found, and this is when I started to learn that there was something of a search to find all of these samples. For the past 22 years since Face to Face was released on March 12, 2001, there has been a quest to find both what songs have been used and how many there are to begin with. This is the search to unmask Face to Face. The earliest known evidence of a found sample from Daft Punk's Face to Face can be traced back to a submission on the website Ishkur in 2005. Ishkur is a website that serves as both a map and timeline of the various types of electronic music. At the time, the site had a page called the Great Samples Database, where one could document origins of samples in music. One user by the name of Sample Minds logged that a sample used in Face to Face was the song Evil Woman by the band Electric Light Orchestra. What makes the use of this sample interesting is that even though Daft Punk have used samples in their music before many times, the usage of Evil Woman is significant as it is indicative of Todd Edwards' contribution to the song. For context, the type of electronic music Daft Punk started producing was known as house music, and the style they would eventually be known for was called French house or French touch. The song Face to Face is instead based off of Todd Edwards' unique version of a different type of house music, garage. Where French touch is primarily known for its constant loops sampled from old 1970s and or 1980s funk and disco records, Todd Edwards' style of garage music became known for its deployment of microsamples, tiny audio clips of vocals lifted from, at the time, disco and R&B songs that would be played either back to back of each other or would be scattered across a track. On Ishkur, there was no explanation for how the sample was used or edited, but in 2007, a DJ by the name of briansredd took to YouTube to demonstrate how Evil Woman was edited for Face to Face. As far as YouTube searches go, this is the first video going over how a sample in Face to Face was used. Though this doesn't confirm that the software used in this video was the same used for the final song, or even that the technique shown to edit the sample was the exact same, it does reveal the basic idea of how the sample was used for Face to Face.
First thing we want to do is we want to bring the BPM to 117.9, which is where Face to Face is. And then we're going to do a key adjustment of 1.2 semitones, which is going to adjust the key down. And let's listen to that little sample snippet once again. Right there. Now let's go back over here and have a listen. We're going to put these samples to a drum beat in the key that we chose and see what you think. Here's the song.
The sample is a clip taken from the chorus of Evil Woman and then pitch shifted down one semitone. Pitch shifting is the process of taking a clip of music and then changing its key either up or down the musical scale. So, for example, say I have an audio clip of a note on a piano being played. Say for instance the note being played normally, without any digital alterations, is in the key of C. When I go to pitch shift it digitally, the note can sound either higher in pitch or lower in pitch, depending on what new key I change it to. Think of it like sheet music. Notes played more upwards on the scale sound higher, while notes played downwards sound lower. Due to the lack of preservation and information, trying to see where discussion about face-to-face samples would have taken place is extremely limited. Thankfully, there is one site I can talk about, a fan site known as the Daft Club. TheDaftClub.com was a fan site where fans of Daft Punk could both discuss and bond over the duo and their music. Though the earliest post I could find was a single thread from 2007 asking what the vocal samples were saying, this seems to fit with what theories about Face to Face were at this point in time. The way people would post theories was through the comment section on YouTube videos, and though there are many ideas as to what the vocals were saying, theories as to what the remaining samples could be were non-existent. This is where we introduce ACOfficial. Sample hunter ACOfficial, then known as Alex is the Man and Rocks, and their friend, now known as Asher Piesman, began to theorize what other samples were used in Face to Face. In 2010, Asher Piesman uploaded 2 videos, one of which was an attempt to remake Face to Face using only the Evil Woman sample, while the other tried to prove that the drum loop heard in the beginning of the song was from the track Falling in Love by the band Surface. Here's the remake using only the Evil Woman sample. Now, here's the drum sample that, at the time, Asher Piesman thought was in Face to Face. And lastly, here's Asher Piesman's second remake of Face to Face using that drum sample. Having asked ACOfficial what the culture of sample hunting was at the time, he said,
"Falling in Love came at a time where everybody thought they knew for sure what the sample was. I'm 90% sure we knew it wasn't it, but it was the only lead that we had."
Progress would be made several years later in 2012 when a person by the name of Joseph Wood uploaded a video showcasing a rip of the flute sample heard in the last leg of Face to Face. The way that this was achieved was by performing what is called a phase inversion. A phase inversion can be described as taking an audio waveform and flipping it upside down or inverting it. If you take 2 identical signals, then invert one of them, and then mix the 2 together, the audio will cancel each other out and you'll hear silence. So, for example, take a song that is built off of many samples, like Face to Face. Cut a clip from the song that features a single drum loop sample with nothing else being played besides it. Then cut another clip that features the same drum loop but with a melodic part over it. If you align these 2 clips of audio properly and then invert the drums, you'll get the clean melodic part without the drum sample. This way, you can use phase inversions to isolate samples from a song. It is important to note, however, that properly aligning 2 waveforms can be extremely difficult to pull off, as any misalignment will not create a clean isolation of an audio signal. This process can be even trickier if the sample you're isolating has extra elements like being layered with other audio, or the sample itself has been digitally processed in some way. Going back to the video by Joseph Wood, the isolation of the flute sample still has massive remnants of the other samples left over. But nevertheless, an impressive step towards finding a new sample had now been achieved. Going back to the Daft Club, though evidence of theories about the samples is limited to seemingly non-existent, by 2014, however, an interest in talking about the samples in Face to Face seemed to have been around. In February of that year, one user asked what the flute sample was from, but no answer was given. The only other post I could find from that year was later on August 20th, 2014, where a different user theorized that the song Harmony by Suzy Lane was a sample due to the similarities between a distinct part in that song and with the main guitar riff in Evil Woman, though this was deemed unlikely. The only new theory I can find afterwards goes all the way to December 10th, 2015, when a post on the Daft Punk subreddit was made going back to the question of what one of the vocal samples were saying. One of the comments replied claiming that the song Return to Pooh Corner by Kenny Loggins was the vocal sample that was saying whatever this was. The very next day, that user from the comment section later made a video on their Tumblr account in an attempt to back up their claim.
Christopher Robin and I want to. Christopher Robin and I want to. Christopher Robin. Christopher Robin. Christopher.
After years of speculating what one of the vocal samples were saying, it seems like an actual answer to that question was finally on the horizon. There was now a likely lead for a brand new sample to be found. Soon after linking this video onto the Daft Club forums, discussion as to how the sample was produced popped up. Over the course of a whole decade, from 2005 to 2015, progress towards understanding face-to-face more clearly was slowly, but surely on the up and up. The most prevalent and perhaps iconic sample in face-to-face had now been identified, a subtle flute was documented to be hiding in the song, and after years of wondering what one of the most elusive vocal samples in the track were saying, it was looking like a definitive answer to that question was just on the cusp of being answered. However, by 2016, even more juicy discoveries were about to be found.